Hello and welcome back to the sideboard here at the Star City Games Invitational in New Jersey. My name is Ruben Bressler and I am joined by Jared Boettcher. That's yes. Boettcher, silent O, as opposed to my name, which is a silent E in the beginning, but we'll move on. So you're playing what I'm calling Jedi Jund. It's a Jund deck that splashes white, just like Sith Naya was around for a little while, splashing black for various things. This is splashing white. And you won an Elite IQ with this last weekend in Catskill, New York, at Kerwain's. Elite IQs are pretty big tournaments. They are just below Classic in terms of size. You must have beat almost triple-digit players who were in the room with this, which is a new deck.
It was a lot of Magic.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about where the idea for this deck came from.
Originally, I was trying to test white-black tokens a lot, and I just gave up on it. And I asked my buddy Chris, what should I play? And he's like, I was gonna try 4-color Jund splashing for Blood Baron. And at first, I just wrote it off like he was just talking craziness. And then I sat down and thought about it. I'm like, Jund has great matchups against almost everything in the field. And the problem Jund has matchups with, the white just gives you answers to.
Yeah.
And that's when I came to the conclusion that I just needed to figure out the exact counts and how to fit the mana base together.
Yeah,
and then
so
came to this.
This is a Jund deck built to beat the Jund mirror.
Yes.
Pretty much very specifically. Like every card in the deck is solely there pretty much for the Jund mirror.
Yeah.
And in an invitational event like this, where people tend to deviate to the mean, play whatever the best deck is, you have the advantage in a lot of those matchups. Have you played Jund so far today?
Not yet. It's unfortunate.
Well, there you go. But you're 3-1, so it's not too bad against the field because you are a Jund deck, which is the best deck. So what are we splashing white for in our Jund deck? Well, 2 cards. First one, Blood Baron of Vizkopa, which you mentioned, is a protection from black, protection from white creature. Also has lifelink, can be helpful. Very powerful Magic card. Didn't really see a lot of play yet. Why did you decide to go with Blood Baron?
So if you look through all the removal spells in Standard now, you have Abrupt Decay, Putrefy, Doomblade, Tragic Slip, etc. And none of them can kill Blood Baron. Yep. The literal only card that can by itself kill Blood Baron is Mizian Orders. Like Helix doesn't kill it, Selesnya Charm, Razorius Charm, none of those can affect Blood Baron. So he's just almost impossible to get rid of unless you have the Mizian Orders or Miracle Bonfire.
Sure. Yeah, he's a very powerful card, able to pull you basically back into any game if you were behind.
Yeah.
The 4-point life swing, anyone who's played a Batterskull and successfully connected with one knows that's usually good enough. Another important note in this deck is you're playing Cavern of Souls.
Yes.
In a Jund deck.
Yes.
We haven't seen Cavern in a long time in Jund because people didn't really want to run Sire anymore, they didn't really care, but you have 2 vampires. You have Olivia Valderon, to be able to be, remember she's a vampire, to be able to cast uncounterably with your Cavern of Souls as well. Was that part of the consideration here?
It goes farther than that too. I was trying to figure out the mana base because Blood Baron's white and other cards are white we'll get to.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you have Farseek and everything, but the mana base is insanely hard even though we have all these dual lands. And Cavern, like you said, it touches on Vampire for both of these, but also it goes to my board and synergizes with Huntmaster and Sin Collector.
Ah, nice.
So I fix the mana even better. Excellent. And then have, it's just all uphill from there.
Absolutely, yeah. Being able to cast a red-green creature and a black-white creature
4
with
different
the same
colors.
land. Sometimes a 5-color duel is the best one in Standard. That's pretty amazing. The other white card that really pushes you over the top is Unburial Rites. You have 2 of Unburial Rites.
I do have 2.
And that sort of lets you play the Jund game, where basically all Jund wants to do is get hell-bent against its opponent, and then top-deck War. Because Jund is just better at top-decking. But you're better at top-decking than a normal Jund deck is, because you have 2 spells for the price of 1 off of Unburial Rites. So, was Unburial Rites the main draw for this deck, to splash for Unburial Rites?
Yeah, it's also really good because even not against Jund, you're looking at Unburial Rites now, essentially you have 6, 8 Thragtusks. A lot of people might be able to answer 1 or 2, but once they get past that and you've only actually cast 1 Thragtusk, you're just starting to fall behind because it's just too much of a monster. Same with Olivia. If you can keep an Olivia in play and just keep reanimating her, she'll just take over the game on herself.
Sure. Yeah, sometimes, especially now that the Legend rule is gone, it's a lot tougher to deal with an Olivia. Although playing the second Olivia is a little dangerous because they can just steal yours, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
The mana, as you mentioned, very difficult. The one thing that keeps it all together, the card that makes it all possible, Farseek, is in the deck. Not going to be with us for too much longer.
That's unfortunate.
But makes these crazy mana bases possible. And the 5th Farseek a lot of people refer to, because Pete, you want to have acceleration, you want to get Thragtusk on turn 4.
Yeah, you're very 4 to 5 drop heavy deck. So
is Rakdos Keyrune.
Yep.
Now, when I was looking at this deck initially, I thought that it was going to be a white Keyrune, either Boros Keyrune or Orzhov Keyrune, because or some either Celestia Keyrune, something in there to try and get what you want. But the power of Rakdos Keyrune is just so good. The fact that it's 3 power first strike was just so overwhelming that you didn't even care about the other ability on it.
I mean, I thought about the other Keyrunes. Like, I thought about Celestia because it's a big body.
Yep.
I gave Boros consideration because it's double strike and it hits white. But after like Farseek and getting the 4 white shocks, like you can always fetch for white. And with Cavern, with the white shocks, you never need to fetch for a non-white shock unless there's already one in play.
Sure.
So you only ever need 1 white land, so you're never going to go overboard with white.
Yeah, you only ever need 1 white source in play. We're not playing Obzadot.
Exactly.
We're not going overboard here. So you're even though Obzadot's probably a better card than Blood Baron, you can resolve this one basically. Right. And so the Rakdos Keyrune being able to deal well with things like Thragtusk, very important to you.
Yeah.
Excellent. The other thing I want to touch on with your main deck is, this is for all Jund in general. Abrupt Decay has become much more popular recently, partially because of banned hexproof, partially because everyone's curve is very, very low, and there are lots of things that you want to be able to hit. Why did you decide to go with the Abrupt Decay?
Banned hexproof is a nightmare for Jund. If you don't have like an early pray they don't have a lot of enchantments, or pray they don't draw an Invisible Stalker, which probably never happens, you need to be able to hit like the Spectral Flay or something that gives you the edge in that matchup. It's insane against Hexproof. It's insane against Esper, which I also thought would be up in the Rise because it beats Hexproof.
Right.
So there has to be one and the other. It kills Reckoner, Smiter, almost everything relevant against Jund. The only thing it doesn't kill is another Olivia.
Right. Kills a lot of problem cards for you. Also takes care of Domery Raid, which is a nice little bonus. That card's not as big a problem, but certainly can get out of hand.
It kills flipped Hunt Masters. It kills Garrux when it's flipped.
Absolutely.
So good.
Now, the other elimination spell, speaking of banned hexproof, we have a Gaze of Granite in the main deck, as well as another one. You have another one in the sideboard, I believe.
Yep.
Gaze of Granite main. Talk to me about that card.
Looking back at looking at the list, a lot of Jund lists are on 4 Bonfire. I'm only on 3.
Sure.
I figured Gaze was just stronger because it's a Pernicious Deed. It'll kill Hexproof, it'll kill tokens, it'll kill Aristocrats, it just kills everything. You have to be a little careful when you're casting it around, like when you have tokens or Flip Hunt Master, but 9 out of 10 times you can cast it for 3 or 4, wipe their board, keep yours, and just continue moving forward.
Right, your only permanent in play after you've traded a bunch is an Olivia. Their only permanents in play are like a Voice of Resurgence token and a Cartel Aristocrat.
Exactly.
And you're good to go.
Yeah, the important thing is it says or less too.
Or less.
So it's not like Ratchet Bomb where it only kills one group of set, it just kills everything underneath.
Absolutely, so you can take care of the Unflinching Courage as well as the Invisible Stalker as well as the Ethereal Armor, all of the things. So moving to the sideboard, we already talked about Sin Collector once in reference to Cavern of Souls, naming Human, being able to cast Huntmaster and Sin Collector. It comes in against a bunch of the blue, white, red flash decks, anything that's control-y.
It also comes in against the mirror.
Also comes in the 4-color mirror?
Or the Jund in general.
Sure. Because you can take out Huntmasters and Thragtusks.
Well, not Hunt, it's not Lifebane. It's Sorcerer's and Instance.
Oh, yeah, it's not Lifebane.
But it hits Rakdos Return, it hits Putrefy, it hits all the important cards that will just push you having the answers, and your opponent will be less cards. It's also a body that they have to answer with Kessig and everything.
Right, it's like a lot like Snapcaster Mage in that it gains value when it comes in, but also is a clock eventually as it moves on.
Exactly. It also lets me see their hand, so I can judge my play without being in the dark.
Very similar to Lifebane Zombie. I don't know why I made that. Let's move on. All right. So the other white cards that you have in your sideboard are Rest in Peace for the Junk Reanimator decks. Any other
Flash decks, Junk Aristocrats, normal Aristocrats. It shuts off Blood Artists, shuts off Voice, shuts off Barrels, shuts off almost everything important.
Sure. And Assemble the Legion is a card that sort of has fallen out of favor because Acidic Slime was so popular for a while. Acidic Slime's fallen out of favor now, so Assemble the Legion can come back.
Yeah, also, Esper is actually a really tough matchup for Jund because they can just drown you out. They don't have to react until you have too much pressure. And 9 out of 10 times, they'll be able to Sphinxes and get their cards back. So Assemble Legion and Sin Collector together just puts Jund over the top in that matchup games 2 and 3.
Sure. You also have a couple of other interesting sideboard choices. Ratchet Bomb is a good quick answer to fast red aggro, as well as some tokens getting rid of things like Intangible Virtue, Lingering Souls, things like that. You have a Vraska in the sideboard. Vraska is something we saw when Jund first became popular, fell out of favor again. Now there's enough Jund that it's back.
Going back to the Elite IQ, I thought it was really awkward playing Garrick and then watching my opponent on Jund play Garrick.
Sure.
And they just sit at each other. It's just weird, and it's never a good matchup. Same with Olivia. Like, 2 Olivias in play is just really awkward. I needed something to significantly put me even more over the mirror's edge. And Vraska just hits everything in the Jund deck. It just doesn't clip up, Aaron.
There you go. Yeah, Vraska reminds me a lot of Frost Titan, whereas Frost Titan was the worst Titan. It beat the other Titans. This is a worse Planeswalker, but it beats other Planeswalkers.
Exactly.
You also have Deadbridge Chant, a little Rob Castellon action going on over here. Why did you decide to have this one be your big, heavy-hitting permanent that isn't a creature in the sideboard? People have been running things like Staff of Nin. I've seen recent lists since M14 came out. They were saying, hey, why don't we try Primeval Bounty? Things like that. But you chose Deadbridge Chant.
Deadbridge Chant is another value card. Against Jund matches, it's just more profit. You're getting 2 cards where they're drawing 1. Against Esper, you're getting 2 cards, and possibly just a Thragtusk into play, or anything into play. It just keeps giving you card advantage, and it's never a negative card.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that the Deadbridge Chant, another advantage that it gives you is that it's an enchantment. Same with Primeval Bounty, because you're running Putrefy. All the Jund decks are running Putrefy, so you can't afford to run Staff of Nin. This is basically the same card. It just draws you a card every turn.
Yeah. It also synergizes well with Barrel Race.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, the odds of drawing a land a lot lower off of Deadbridge Chant because your graveyard's already full of spells and not lands.
Exactly.
So, I saw this deck on Tuesday. You told me, hey, I don't want anyone to see this deck because I think it's awesome, and all the New York guys are playing it. Is it going to go up on the website? And I was like, I don't think anyone's going to worry about stealing your tech. And then I saw the deck and I was like, oh geez, what have I done? But this does look like a great deck. I probably would have played this deck if you would have let me at the Invitational if I were playing.
Right.
It looks like a ton of fun. You're 3-1, headed into the Legacy. Jared, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jared Boettcher, Ruben Bressler here at Star City Games Invitational in New Jersey.